So much for coming on. So we don't spend a ton of time worrying about the state of the progressive movement because I'm speaking for myself, not a progressive. But it would be nice to have an actual progressive stand up and point out that this is truly nuts. Where are they?
Look, Tucker, I'm someone who was very inspired by the squad when all of them first ran. I think all of them have shown courage, and I agree with the domestic policies that they supported, especially Medicare for all. And also, I'm a big fan of Chapo Trap House. I'm seeing their live show tomorrow. But right now, overall, the progressive movement, when it comes to the most important issue in the world, is dead. We have a proxy war against a nuclear armed power. The active U.S. policy, as Lloyd Austin made clear, is not to defend Ukraine, it's to weaken Russia. People like Lindsey Graham have said out loud that as long as we arm Ukraine, they will fight to the last person. And where are progressives on this? Every single time the Ukraine proxy war has come up for a vote, they voted in lockstep for it. Every single Democrat, including Bernie Sanders. Even as news has come out that the U.S. has sabotaged peace talks, even as Joe Biden, as you just played, openly says he won't negotiate with Russia to end this war, there is no force in Washington right now for sanity, calling for diplomacy, which I thought is what being a progressive is supposed to be about.
Yes.
And you saw in that clip a very angry expression from those protesters feeling let down by their progressive elected representatives.
Yeah, I mean, if Marjorie Taylor Greene is more anti-war than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and she is, then we're an upside-down world. Like, this is true craziness. Will this change, or is she in for as long as it takes, too?
Well, look, a major problem in the Democratic Party has been the propaganda campaign known as Russiagate. For 6 years, Democrats have been taught to believe that Russia is an existential enemy that can brainwash millions of Americans into not supporting Hillary Clinton and swinging elections. And that now, accordingly, when it comes to this proxy war, that there's no point in negotiating with them, even though, by the way, Russiagate has been used to undermine a progressive agenda, not just being used to funnel billions of dollars into the military-industrial complex, but also has been used to sabotage progressive candidates. Remember Bernie Sanders? Bernie Sanders in 2016 came very close to winning the Democratic Party nomination. Hillary Clinton lost that race to Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton responded by blaming Russia for everything and concocting a conspiracy theory that Trump was a Russian asset. Bernie Sanders, instead of calling that out, went along with it, and he was rewarded in 2020 when he was surging in the primaries before Nevada. He was Russiagated. Some leaks were made that were accusing Russia of supporting him. So that's how the Democratic Party rewards even progressives who are loyal to their agenda. And if that doesn't wake them up, then maybe the increasing prospect of nuclear war should.
You would think. Aaron Mate, thank you for that. Appreciate it. So last night at a sparsely attended town hall in the Bronx, two of Sandy Cortez's constituents said that out loud. Watch this.
Congresswoman, none of this matters unless there's a nuclear war, which you voted to send arms and weapons to Ukraine. Tulsi Gabbard, she's left the Democratic Party because they're fucking war hawks, okay? You originally voted, you ran as an outsider, yet you've been voting to start this war in Ukraine. You're voting to start a thermonuclear war with Russia and China. Why are you playing with the lives of American citizens? You're playing with our lives.
There will be no neighbors if there's a nuclear bomb. You voted to mobilize and send money to Ukrainian Nazis. You're a coward. You're a progressive socialist. Where are you against the war mobilization? He's telling the right truth. You have done nothing. Tulsi Gabbard has shown guts where you've shown cowardice. I believed in you, and you became the very thing you sought to fight against. That's what you've become. You are the establishment, and you are the reason why everybody will end up in a nuclear war unless you choose to stand up right now and denounce the Democratic Party. We could be in a nuclear war at any minute, and you continue to fund it. That's what's going on. Why not right now? You're the liar here.
Okay, so those are actual progressives. Now, there's no doubt that on virtually any other issue, we wouldn't agree with them. Don't know what their beliefs are, probably don't intersect with ours. But on this specific issue, which does matter, they're absolutely right. Sandy Cortez is not a radical, she's not a progressive, she's a neocon, just like everybody else. She is a tool of the people with power, obviously. They can see that clearly because it's true. Her response, "You are being rude. Oh, you're being rude now," says the very same Sandy Cortez who instructed activists to terrorize their political opponents. Quote, "The whole point of protesting is to make people uncomfortable." Oh, is that right? So they were kind of following your instructions, weren't they? The protesters you just saw used Sandy Cortez's preferred tactics against her. They immediately seized the moral high ground and they started yelling. And they got no response from Sandy Cortez. Why is that? Because she has nothing to say. They're onto her. They know who she really is, and she knows that. They were right. Shortly after she took office, Sandy Cortez funded the largest expansion of our nation's military ever. In 2019, she approved an unprecedented $738 billion military budget. Now, publicly, Sandy Cortez never justified this vote. Instead, she kept demonizing the military she was funding, right? Of course. Watch
I don't
this.
believe our whole nation's priority is to slaughter people in other parts of the world. I think it is a priority of a powerful and concentrated class in the United States that happens to have a grip of control over our government.
Oh, okay. So that was the TikTok approved version. That was for all the college kids on social media. But in real life, she didn't mean a word of it. The only part she meant was America's terrible. She does believe that. She does hate the country. But pulling back from a war that will hurt the country, why would she do that? She doesn't like the country. Anything that's not in our interest, she's completely for. And that's why this year, Sandy Cortez, along with every member of the squad, the progressives, voted to approve another massive $40 billion military spending bill. Cori Bush even voted for it, even after she admitted it would directly contribute to, quote, the increased risks of direct war and the potential for direct military confrontation between Russia and the U.S. So even Cori Bush, probably the lowest IQ member of the United States Congress, it was pretty obvious where this was going. It was going to war with Russia. But she voted for it anyway. They all did. Meanwhile, the leaders of the Democratic Party tried to sell this, which is, again, a step toward war, which does not help us in any way, only hurts us, as a humanitarian effort. Watch.
Today, we are voting to provide nearly $40 billion to address the immediate and near-term security, economic, and humanitarian needs of the Ukrainian people.
We are morally obligated to ensure the brave Ukrainian fighters and the Ukrainian people have the security and economic aid that they need.
What we're doing here is very important, is supplying weaponry and security assistance, government and economic assistance, humanitarian assistance.
The supplemental appropriation bill is a down payment on the security and success of democracy.
Glory to Ukraine. We want the victory for Ukraine, and we want defeat for Vladimir Putin. Regime change would be great, but we realize that that will not happen, but defeat must happen.
Oh, so it's humanitarian assistance. Really? Did you look at the bill? No. It was a military funding bill. The real point of it was buying arms. More than half of it, $24 billion, went to military equipment, weapons. $19 billion went directly to the war effort in Ukraine. So, okay, if you're an out-of-the-closet neocon, this makes sense. But if you're Sandy Cortez, who's all over TikTok talking about the working people, fighting the man, what does this tell you about her? She doesn't care about the people she claims to represent. She has contempt for them. She talks about their misery only to leverage it for her own benefit. She hoards power in their name. They are merely the tools of her personal advancement. They're not her real constituency. How could they be? They don't benefit from this. Her real constituency is NBC News, the editors at Teen Vogue, and Volodymyr Zelensky, the celebrity-endorsed dictator of the most corrupt nation in Europe. Zelensky is now shaking down our cowardly Congress for more cash at the very moment our own economy and our own borders are collapsing. Watch.
At this time, we have two key financial needs of the country. That's $38 billion to make up for the deficit of our budget for next year, and other $17 billion that were verified by the World Bank and needed to rebuild the critical infrastructure. We need also targeted credits in the amount of $2 billion to rebuild the electric energy infrastructure after the destruction and to expand our export to Europe. We need credit limits to purchase gas and coal for the future heating season. The scope of this year's support should be not less than $5 billion.
What? Some uppity foreigner in a t-shirt demanding money for his critical economic needs? We have critical economic needs too, buddy. Who are you, troll? Go away.
No kidding.
What? Since when does that guy have a claim on our treasury?
Yeah.
So this is the job of people like Sandy Cortez, to remind us again to break the spell of hypnosis the U.S. Congress is under. We don't owe this guy anything.
Yeah.
Not one thing. Good luck, pal. That's it. And as our economy degrades and our border is gone, that guy's lecturing us with some Christmas list like, I want this, that, and I want a bicycle too. You better send it quick. Really? Up yours, buddy. And at the same time, dragging us, the entire West, toward nuclear war, telling us we have to nuke Russia. And what does Sandy Cortez do? She affirms it. She's not a progressive. She's a stealthy neocon operative. The entire leadership of the so-called progressive movement is that. They're totally and utterly corrupt. Is anyone on the left pointing this out? Has Cenk Uygur said a word about it? The so-called radicals at Chapo Trap House? The Atlantic Magazine, NPR, MSNBC, or these left-wing media organizations always telling you how deeply they care about oppressed peoples? All of them calling for radical race war every day. But when actual civilization-ending war looms on the horizon, they're cheerleading for it. Right alongside the Pentagon.
We're going to stay with our efforts to support Ukraine for as long as it takes.
We will not waver from our commitment to support Ukraine as long as it takes.
We will continue to support Ukraine for as long as it takes.
You're already north of $15 billion in terms of those commitments. How far do you go?
As long as it takes.
As long as it takes.
As long as it takes to do what? Has anyone even asked that question? Has Sandy Cortez asked that question? Have your progressive pals asked that question? As long as it takes to do what? How long is that? What's the goal? And at what cost? And what's the risk? Should we weigh those? No. As long as it takes. Why? Because they're getting more power. A very bad sign that the President of the United States is likening the opposition party to the Nazis. It doesn't seem accidental. It seems intentional. And it seems like the beginning of something very bad. Can you think of any other president who's ever spoken this way about American citizens?
Not really. We had a senator named Joe McCarthy that did, and we know how that ended up. But Joe Biden is all for unity when his polls are above 50%, and when he's desperate. And so far his polls are dropping, even this week as I speak, down back to 38 in the latest Reuters. Then he tries to divide the nation, and we know how that's going to end up. It's not going to end up well for him, but it's so predictable. We went through the Russian collusion hoax, and then we went through the laptop disinformation hoax. Then we went through the insurrection and attempt to overthrow the government January 6th. It was a buffoonish riot. And then we went the Donald Trump raid hoax, that he had nuclear secrets and he had to be, for the first time in history as an ex-president, his home had to be invaded. And it's so predictable because it's just mass distraction. None of these issues that he has pushed through, Joe Biden, on the border, on crime, on inflation, on the economy, on energy, have 50% support. He doesn't have 50% support. And what have we been talking, Tucker, about the nation? They've been talking about all of these psychodramas that are ginned up. And now it's civil war porn. The right wants to, they're fascists. They're Nazis. They want to have a civil war. But if you want to listen to civil war or succession, just read The Nation magazine or The New Republic. All they talk about is succession. If you want to look at revolutionaries, who's the one that wants to pack the court or destroy a 233-year-old electoral college or get rid of a 180-year filibuster? Who weaponizes, you said, the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA? Are there generals right now who are saying that Joe Biden should leave office sooner than later than they did about the former president? I don't think so. There's nobody, on inauguration, nobody's saying the White House should be blown up as Madonna did. Nobody's writing in Foreign Policy magazine that we need a military coup.
Americans are not Nazis, and most Americans are really nice on both sides and decent people. It worries me that he's talking this way. And I appreciate your perspective on this. Victor Davis Hansen, thank you.
Thank you.
So as we told you,